We live in a fast-paced and hectic world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control. How do you manage all the competing pressures without losing sense of yourself? How do you stay focused enough to not only plot a path, but follow it? Welcome to Master Your Life, a show that offers inspiration, insight, and intelligence, as well as success stories from many walks of life that can show you how you can control your own destiny. Our knowledgeable and entertaining host and her guests give practical advice that you can use every day in the quest to master your life. Now, here's your host, Leaha Mattinson.
Hi, everyone. I'm host Leaha Mattinson, and thank you to everyone who's tuning in from wherever it is that you are on this beautiful planet. I want to just say, give yourselves a pat on the back for showing up and tuning in, not only on the audio version, but if you're catching us on the podcast, please come over to the masteryourlife.ca website so you can watch the video version. It's exciting to see us in live time because we want to talk to you today about how to master your energy in challenging times. And I'm joined by my guest, Lee Holden. Master Lee Holden is a practitioner of Qigong. He is a Chinese doctor. He is a herbalist, and he is a well-known researcher also in the US and abroad. So Lee, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Leaha. Thank you so much for having me again. So good to be back, and always just appreciate and get inspired by our conversations.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. The last episode we did was Start Your Day the Taoist Way. So for those of you who didn't catch that one, you want to go back and just Google, search in the website again. Lee Holden and his episodes will come up. So you'll be able to see how to start your day the Taoist way, which might not be something that any of you have considered or contemplated before. Today, though, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about all of the fear and insecurity that is going on in the world right now, and actually how Qigong can help you to transform fear and insecurity into, let's call it fertilizers, so that you can look your best, feel your best, and feel grounded and rooted using your Qigong practice. So Lee, let's just pick up on the whole subject matter right now of the fear and insecurity. What are you seeing in the world that's maybe a little bit different or that's lingering?
Yeah, and I think that's such a good question and so relevant too. I'm just seeing a lot of people facing fears and the unknown and what's going to happen, and and that's part of life, right? And I think when we face the unknown, it does lead to fear for a lot of us because we're in survival mode. We're in stress mode, and the news and all the things going on out there kind of really push us into that direction where we get stressed out. We're living in a bit of a fear-based society, and we're kind of questioning, well, what's going to happen next? Because we just came through a lot of stress and craziness and unusualness. And now we're kind of still now coming on the other end of that and saying, now what? Now what? And so as we face the unknown, the question and the inquiry that we can all have with ourselves is, can I face the unknown with a feeling of being centered, with relaxation, an open, clear mind, and really drop back into the present moment? The Eastern masters tell us to come back to your foundation, which is the moment, and really say, is there something in my present moment to create fear right now? If not, we can relax. And relaxation is such a good key word, because relaxing is not adding anything unnecessary to the present moment, not adding your fear-based thinking or the worried mind into this moment that is pristine. So you come back and you neutralize it. It's this martial arts technique. You neutralize adversarial energy so that it doesn't harm you. Because when we're living in fear, it harms us. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your mind. It creates a disruption to your very pristine, beautiful life force energy. So how do we get out of that? How do we neutralize it? How do we reframe it? And then how do we have a different outlook as we set our minds on our sights and what we want to create in our lives? And this is just a really positive way of developing that relationship with the unknown.
Yeah, I love that's such a great perspective, and want to invite people actually to get a paper and pen out because part of the identifying what the stressors are, those things that are adversarial, is actually identifying them, which I think for a lot of people, there's so much of that adversarial stuff going on, they don't even realize that it's coming at them all the time. So whether that's coming at them from an external force like the TV, or it's coming at them from their internal mind chatter about how lumpy and stumpy and bumpy and frumpy they are, and how they haven't got their life figured out, and their kids aren't good enough, and the grandchildren are like, everything's a mess, and I can't talk to anybody, and who can I rely on? So there's all of these adversarial things, internal and external. But until you capture them somehow, it's really difficult to actually even identify what in the world is actually triggering me. So I encourage people just to take a moment to do that. How do you do that? How do you capture things? Do you have a practice of journaling, or do you do tea? Like, how do you capture it? Do it all.
You know what? It's kind of like do whatever works, really. I mean, it's like, do we have the tools and resources to drop into a positive state and transform whatever's going on in our lives? And I think that tools and resources are a really good word. And you just mentioned a few. Do I sit down and have a cup of tea? Do I meditate? Do I have an energy practice? Do I have a mindfulness practice? What do I need right now to handle the stress that I'm finding in my life? And Leah, you were just talking about, is it external or internal? And often these go back and forth, right? Because our internal chatter and our worries is often stress-based. And then we bring that energy into our external environment, and we can create a lot more chaos than necessary when we have an internal disrupted, stressful state of mind and body. And if sure, everybody's facing stressors out in the external. Do I have enough money? What about my kids? This guy at work was bothering me. What about global warming? It could be small things. It could be big things. It could be inside, outside. So we often feel this bombardment of stressors that we don't know how to neutralize, transform, and then reshape and reframe them. And so I think the tools and resources can be quite simple, and they really are effective if you use them. If you don't use them and you just know them in your head, they don't work as well. And so these are going to be Tai Chi, exercise. They're all going to be really helpful, because when you get your body moving, it's a way to disperse emotional stress. So move your body, and don't sit too long. Don't stay seated too long. Get your body moving, because that's going to really help to clear the stress that's been internalized in our bodies. My favorite practice, is Qigong practice. And I've been teaching it for 30 years, and I've just seen how amazing and how wonderful it works for people, and how simple and effective it is. The other thing to do is really tune into your breathing. It can be a direct bridge to transforming whatever stress we're feeling, if it's in our brains, and if it's in our minds, if it's in our external environment. How are you breathing? Now, you can't feel stressed out unless you change your breathing pattern, because stress is a switch in your nervous system, and your breath is going to be that turning on and off switch. So when we're stressed out, we're going to breathe more shallow. We're going to breathe more upper into our chest. So as soon as you deepen your breath and slow it down, your body's going to relax a little bit more. And why don't you all just take a slow, deep breath through your nose and just see what that does? It's nice and slow, like slow exhale. And all of a sudden something switches inside of you. Imagine doing that for 4 or 5 minutes. Now you're more in charge of your energy, because what we want is you to be in charge of your energy, not all the craziness in life, pushing and pulling you this way and that way, and where you feel completely out of balance and disrupted. So move your body, breathe, have a solid practice. And then what do we do with our minds? We talked a little bit about it already, but just coming back to the present moment, where we just look around and say, is this problem happening right here, right now? Take a deep breath. And usually the answer is, well, no, but it might happen later. Well, it might happen later. You being relaxed and calm and clear, you're going to have more resources to deal with that problem, and might as well not infuse this moment with all that agitation. Might as well find your center, get calm, and then address what you need to address from that calm, clear space.
Yeah. And again, very powerful tool, and so easy. Like, what do we do that for? 15 or 30 seconds at most. And it can automatically change your entire day. And when you do that, when you're conscious about doing that, it changes all of your interactions with everybody that's around you, and it changes their day. So it's very interesting how powerful that whole Qigong practice is around being conscious and mindful about actually just calming down. And also part of what happens during that process is that you get more rooted, balanced, and you feel more centered. Because even if you're sitting in a chair, there's something that changes with the breathing that roots you a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Is even if you're sitting in the chair, sometimes when you're sitting in a chair, maybe you don't have the opportunity to go exercise, but you can do a little stretches. You can just move your spine. There's a few Qigong exercises. Lee and I are doing Qigong right now. For those of you listening, we're doing dog wagging the tail. And what happens is you get tension right along the sides of your spine. Mm-hmm. I bet some listeners might go, oh yeah, I have that. You might get some tension right in your neck and shoulders. So by just imagining what a dog wagging their tail's like, and just do it in your chair where you just shift the weight left and right and move your spine, helps to create an ease in the tension in your back. And you do it for 30 seconds or so, and then you go back to work and you got a little bit more energy and less tension. So there's simple tools and resources. I think, Leah, we called them chi breaks in one of the episodes before. You just take a little 2-3 minute chi break and you charge yourself back up. Every single device that you have needs to be charged and plugged in. What makes you any different? We got to plug ourselves in and charge back up, and then come into our day with a little bit more energy and focus.
Yeah, and that's way more powerful than any charge cord I've ever used on any device. Because it just takes 30 seconds. I don't know any device that you can plug in for 30 seconds and be fully charged. Or at least partially charged. So it's an invitation. One of the things, the resistances I hear from people about doing Qigong is it looks funny.
Yeah.
Well, that looks funny. Wag your
that's
tail.
Relative. You know what? When I look inside a gym and I see people on a treadmill, I say that kind of looks funny too. A lot of things we do sort of look funny, but let's find what works.
You're right. Yeah. Very key. Find what works. Find what works in the moment. Find what works. And for some people, they can't even get to a gym, or they can't get outside to train. We live here in Canada and there's snow for a lot of the time, or the seasons aren't that great, where a Qigong practice can actually, you can take it outside and then it's more like fighting dragons, but maybe you want to do some of that adversarial stuff to build tenacity. But I was just saying, in Canada, that we have these seasons that make it more adversarial, and we need to be indoors for some of the practice time, but not all of it. So being outdoors is nice, but being indoors sometimes is required. And what I love about Qigong is that you can do it indoors in a very small space, so you can get these amazing results in a very small space. And it's good who is it good for? Who can do it?
I know, right? I mean, that's the beautiful thing about this practice. It's accessible to all of us. It's accessible to, those that are in their 90s and those that are in their 20s. I was just at an event and I was teaching Qigong in the Middle East of all places. I was in Jordan at this, event, and I taught this beautiful practice. And there were mostly Europeans in their 20s and 30s. And it's a little bit different audience, but people were like, oh, I feel my energy. Thanks so much, Lee. Oh my gosh. I never knew that there was this part of me. It's like, in the mansion of who we are, you just opened up a few new doorways when you start doing energy work. And you're just like, whoa, I never knew this room was here. How cool is this? It's full of all kinds of wonderful things. And as we were saying before, Leah, you just are doing something different. You might look or feel a little strange doing these exercises, like we just did dog wagging the tail. That might seem a little strange, but the reason these exercises look a little funny is because in society, we're doing things that are so unnatural already. It's not natural for us to sit on a chair and stare at a screen for 8 hours a day, or, all kinds of things are unnatural. So Qigong comes from watching the movements of nature, looking at children, looking at animals, looking at a river, looking at a cloud in the sky, and saying, if I start to move my mind in those kind of natural ways, how do I feel? And all of a sudden there's this calm clarity that comes over you that you go, wow, I didn't know I could feel this good.
Yeah. And can you pick one animal that would be something? Because I can think of several, because I play these games with my grandkids, and it's so much fun. But what would be one animal that people could easily relate to, and maybe do a body movement that would help them to release some tension or free themselves? Because you know what I also found is that Qigong is the best high in the world. Where people go, they're chasing a high all the time. You go, holy man, like I can be high and with fire breathing in about, well, I've been doing it for a while now, so it takes a little longer, but it's not long. And so you just go, holy moly. So
yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I think you're right. We are seeking ways of what you said, getting high, meaning let's get out of the mundane, let's get into the magical. And and the magical is when you have perspective. So you get higher, like standing on the mountain, you have more vision, and you just feel good in your body. And that high comes from a natural internal place, and it's accessible to all of us. We just have to do a little work to get there. And that work, Qigong, gong means work. So what is the work you're going to put in to invest in yourself to get your energy in a more balanced, more elevated place? And then you feel light, you feel clear, and you feel the way you want to feel. We all think like certain things or certain choices that we make are going to get us there. I'm going to relax, so I just sit in front of the TV. I want to get high, so I have some alcohol. I need to get more energy, so I drink a cup of coffee. Well, these things are lower vibrations. They do work. They just don't get us there from a natural way, in a sustained way. When you put in a little work and get yourself there, you're actually getting yourself there in a much stronger way. And the beautiful thing about Qigong is that the effort involved is minimal, and it feels good during the process. So the process of hiking to the top of the mountain where you feel high actually is a really enjoyable process, because along the way, there is lots of views, there's lots of experiences. You take yourself on the hike, where some substances maybe just take you there on a helicopter. You didn't put the work in. And then you're like, well, how did I get here? And I missed the journey. So what we want to be able to do is really empower ourselves to take charge of our own energy, and we become empowered. Leah, you just mentioned animals, and I'm teaching a course called the 5 Animal Frolics. And It's a really fun set. Each animal has a whole sequence of movements. And some people think the 5 Animal Frolics were the precursor to Tai Chi practice. Mm-hmm. So in that 5 Animal Frolics practice, you see a lot of movements that are similar to Tai Chi. And Tai Chi is a word that people know about more than Qigong. But when people think of Tai Chi, it's actually most people are doing Qigong practices, the exercises for Tai Chi. And so the 5 Animal Frolics, interestingly enough, is a very ancient practice that was the precursor to Tai Chi, that has a lot of dynamic movements, like, starting with the tiger. And I think this is a really fun one because it's very invigorating and it's very empowering. Yeah, we get to take on the quality of that. The tiger is like when we need some fierceness in our lives, when we just say, hey, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to break these patterns, and I'm going to bring in new patterns. That's that tiger energy. Tiger is about courage, confidence, abundant energy, and inspiration. If we can tune into what's inspiring us, what do we really feel driven about or excited or passionate about, that brings some of that tiger energy. So we can orient towards that, as well as our responsibilities. If we get too overwhelmed with responsibilities and what I should and have to do, it becomes very heavy. Mm-hmm. And when we get into our tiger spirit, when our chi gets stronger, we get very light and strong and powerful within ourselves. So these animals are like archetypes that represent a particular quality of energy that we might need, want, or feel like we could discover in our lives.
Yeah, because the tiger isn't worried about global warming, but the tiger is doing some other stuff. So I want to, I'm joking around because that's part of the meow. You can,
right?
brings that out too. It's because your confidence rises when you think about that. So I want to invite everyone who's listening to really think about what would the embodiment of that be. Like if you were the tiger, insert your name here and go, I am a tiger. And then what was that? What did that actually feel like in your body. So Lee, do you have a little practice that you can actually share? Or do you want people? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great, Leah. And I think, Tiger 2 is about change and transformation. It's like, you know what, let's create change. Let's transform. Where am I now? Where do I want to go? And we can also look into the world around us, and we need people that are conscious, positive. We really can see life from that elevated perspective and recognize, hey, you know what? We're all one. We're all unified. We're part of the whole ecosystem, and that we need to take better care of each other and better care of this planet. And we need some tiger energy, some strong, clear, confident energy of transformation from a grounded, kind, compassionate place. But it needs to be like the peaceful warrior is the tiger. Mm-hmm. We're not just walking around with our anger and wanting change. We're walking around with this peaceful where, okay, hey, we've gotten ourselves in a mess, whether it's, globally or whether it's within our own lives. I'm going to bring in this tiger energy and create this transformation. So that's really the spirit of this animal. And it also can be really fun. You get the frolics as a playfulness. And, in Chinese, when you talk about Qigong, they don't say practice Qigong, they say play Qigong. So you're playing and you bring in a very childlike energy and a really, it's this combination of childlike spirit with the wisdom of an enlightened master mixed together when you're doing Qigong. So you're calm, you're clear, you're serene, but your heart is light. So that's what's so fun about this. Well, let's do a little tiger practice. Now, what I want you guys to do is just, you're sitting in your chair, or you could be standing up. You're going to bring your hands up and you're going to curl your fingers like a tiger claw. And you're going to bring them up over your head, and you're going to inhale through the nose. And when you exhale, when you do this standing, you squat down, you bring your hips towards your heels, and that's going to release your low back. But if you want to do it sitting, you just big, deep breath, and you almost like make this tiger breath, it's called, and it vibrates in the back of your throat, and it's clearing stress. So if you're at your office desk right now I want you to growl really loud, or if you're in line at your favorite coffee shop, just do this very loudly and just really get weird with it.
That's right.
And you just come straight up and you come straight down. And I want you to just feel like you're letting go of any stress that might be weighing heavy in your mind or heart. Inhale as you come up. Exhale as you come down. And if you're doing this as a standing practice and squatting, it really builds strength in your legs. Okay, now if you do dog wags a tail, there's another animal movement. Now you loosen up your spine, you've gotten rid of your stress, and your back has less tension. Very good.
Love it. And a little applause. That's all for everybody. Applause does something too.
Hey, when you clap your hands together, there's pressure points in the palms of your hands that are along the heart meridian. So yeah, it does. It just disperses a little emotional stress. That's
right. Love and appreciation. It's an interesting thing that we applaud other people often, but ourselves maybe not quite so much. So
yeah.
Key things. I love that. All right. So everyone, I hope you had some fun doing the tiger with us today. Now, for those of you who are just listening in on the podcast, please come to the masteryourlife.ca website so you can watch the video version and follow along. You'll find that Lee's offerings are all there also under Holden Qigong. So you can find an easy link to him and get your hands on all of his courses and all of the interviews that we have done in the past also. So one of the things I want to talk a little bit too about is mental and emotional health right now, Lee. People are really struggling with, and it's not just old people. So I think we heard the term midlife crisis, we've all heard that and go, God, I hope that doesn't happen to me. But now what we're seeing statistically is that actually these crises in mental and emotional health are happening at a much, much younger age. And so it's kind of this broad spectrum of people in developed countries are really struggling with and reporting. They're not just keeping it hidden, they're also reporting that they're having these struggles. And so it's very front and center. So people, first of all, what does that look like for people when they're struggling with mental and emotional stress? Is it different than physical stress, or is it all sort of combined in one big ball of twisted up,
Yeah.
Gordian knot.
Yeah. I mean, let's have midlife magic, or midlife, instead of a crisis, let's have midlife transformations,
Yes.
because there are stages in life where energy transforms, but, after, college or, high school, sometimes we don't have those rites of passages, and midlife could be a rite of passage to move you into the next phase of beautiful experiences. We just as society have a poor outlook on aging, and we don't quite know how to age gracefully as a culture. And we have this representation, and there's other cultures that as you get older, you become more revered.
Yes.
You become wiser. People come to ask you questions, and you're just, we don't do that here in the West as much. And so we feel like, oh man, I'm getting older. I'm going to have this crisis. I don't want to get older, but so two things. Qigong has this way of reframing it, that you're not getting older, you're getting wiser. And if you do your Qigong practice, you're not getting more and more unhealthy. As we have this image, you're getting stronger in your energy system, and you still can cultivate healthy, vibrant energy. Because I've seen some of my teachers and masters, and they're in their 80s, 90s, hundreds, and they're full of vitality and this beautiful spirit, and they move their bodies really well. I'm like, there's a representation of how to age gracefully. Mm-hmm. And if people knew this, they would want to do that, because, let's say that, Qigong, the quote is, add not only years to your life, but life to your years. Mm-hmm. Add more vitality to your days, add more vitality into your life right now, so that we live longer and age gracefully. So I think that's a really interesting perspective that we can start to embrace and bring into this practice.
Yeah, and it's a community perspective and a culture perspective. So I love that you mentioned that, Lee, and I think it's important. So when people are in the Qigong community, like your Qigong community, you see all these ages of people that are teachers, that are taking the courses at all different ages, that are becoming teachers at all different ages. So there's a more of an acceptance or a practice of that you ask for wisdom and you seek it.
Yeah.
So you're not afraid to ask or seek, because that's actually the expectation. Where in Western culture, and maybe not Western culture entirely, but lots of our culture really is about fierce independence. Don't ask for any help. You got to figure it out on your own. You got to be a pioneer in everything that you do. And then that causes these problems where we don't tell the truth about the things that we need help with in life. Mm-hmm. And, right. So then that creates this problem where you're starting to seek, well, then who would be good mentors? Because that's part of good longevity too. I mean, that's in the Blue Zone studies, hands down. The reason why people live long, healthy lives is because of who they hang out with, who they've had lifelong relationships, friendships. So those things are really important. And so the normal milestones of life not only have been hijacked over the last 10, 20 years, the last 2 years, 3 years has been significant change. People not graduating from high school together, people not being with their loved ones when they pass. So these are real milestones of life where transitions would have been tended to with the family. We even see changes in potty training. So the milestones for potty training have changed. So instead of children being potty trained at 2 years old, it's becoming closer to 3 and 4 years old. So it's very interesting. And the psychology of that kind of stuff is important for people to pay attention to.
Yes.
Because why are we actually getting slower about these things? What's going on? And then if you don't have the wisdom of that group that helps, like the grandparents, the parents, to help to nurture the children, and you've got a whole bunch of kids, and this, so it's like, but if you don't have those wonderful mentors or people to help in the community, and that you're asking for help and support from them, then you lose out on that as well. So you lose out on that wisdom, and also people expecting you to struggle. So there's this expectation of struggle and challenge. So you've talked about, like the mountains in life and the real challenges in life, which are these things that we're coming up against. There's lots of fear and insecurity more now than ever. There's lots of mental and emotional disconnect more now than ever. So if we're being responsive middle-agers, then how do we are responsible middle-agers? How do we help or how do we invite people to think about how they can take back their own mental health or emotional health and well-being? What would be some of the things that they can do through the Qigong practice or the community And is it an inclusive community? What's different about it than, say, I don't know, Western communities that are getting together?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much you brought up. I mean, I think these, like what you said about aging.
Sorry.
I know.
Like a fire hose.
Like, yeah. Yes. No, I love it. I mean, the Blue Zone comments were really important, I feel like, because, there's certain places in the world where people age gracefully. We're like, what are they doing? Is it what they eat? Is it that they exercise? Well, yeah, there's those are contributing, definitely. But what are their communities like? And that is a big factor. In fact, it is one of the more important factors is what their communities are like, and what's the perspective of the community, and how socially supportive are we feeling, and why is that? Well, if we look at it from an energetic lens, because your heart metabolizes life experiences like your organs digest food. Like we are taking in nutritious emotional energy all the time, or we're taking in toxic emotional energy from our environment. So is our community one that's supporting us? Is it helping us feel connected? Do we have people to go to? Can we talk to people? Do we have a similar outlook on life? And, often no. So, the beautiful thing about, the internet is that there's communities out there with like-minded people. Like my Qigong community, I feel like is a really great resource for help. They are getting together all the time online from all over the world and having practice parties and talking about amongst themselves and bringing in Qigong principles and talking and sharing. And I think we have the opportunity now to use technology for some very positive things if it's not happening in our immediate surroundings. And then just stepping back and saying, okay, where in my life are the nurturing relationships, and where are the ones that are more challenging, and where are the ones that are toxic? And I'm going to limit how much I invest time-wise in my toxic relationships, and my challenging ones, I'm going to start to work on seeing if I can bring it over here to this positive camp and really have some heart-to-heart conversations, whatever that means, and then really lean into the positive support network. And that's a good way to just step back and just say, I'm taking in energy from my community, from my surroundings. How do I make this a little healthier? And what I tell people is, there might be a buffet of food where there's just, donuts and McDonald's, but you don't have to eat it. So even if there is challenging, negative people or circumstances around you, don't ingest that energy. Just choose not to internalize it. Say, oh, no, thank you. That's not my energy. And we call it, let's not take it personally. It's challenging. Let's not take their energy personally. Let's not take it into ourselves. Let's not ingest it. Well, there's lots of techniques we can do to help stay centered, grounded, protected from that energy in a Qigong perspective. And let's choose to take in a little bit more healthy energy and make our bodies and minds stronger and relate with people that are like-minded to us. And that's a big challenge in our personal lives. And but that's why we have our practice. That's why we have our tools and resources to lean into. And we don't always do it perfectly. We're perfectly imperfect, and we forgive ourselves. We forgive people around us, and we do our very, very best to move through life from a kind, compassionate heart space.
Mm-hmm. Love it. And that's part of growth, isn't it? Just the transformation and transmutation and casting off of the things that are compost that aren't working for us. And so that's something that was very clear in the Qigong practice, and is a big differentiator from a lot of the practices I think that I have been exposed to over my life as a coach. So I want to shift gears, not much, but a little bit, to talk a little bit about where it is that you do business, Lee. Because prior to the big C hitting, you were kind of worldwide doing teacher training in the UK and et cetera, et cetera. And then can you actually talk about the training that you've done, not just in the US, but across the globe, and then what you're doing now? Okay,
great. And it's a bit of a shifting gears because we really had to emphasize, like many people, the online aspect of our business and community, and a lot less live events, which was a big part of our business, is just holding trainings and workshops on the West Coast of the United States, East Coast, Europe. I did some workshops in South America. I was doing a lot more traveling. And now I'm grounded. I was grounded. And I'm just starting to move back into doing live events, kind of thinking about it. We haven't even done those yet. But what I've really loved about how we pivoted it and changed is just to create a really solid online community with a lot of different tools and resources that people can tap into, from beginner practices to intermediate to very condition specific, like insomnia or back pain. I host these like once a month. I do a workshop, a 3-hour event on a topic. We just did one we called it Rise and how do we end the day more gracefully? So yes, the one that's coming up is the evening practice. Like, what do we do at the end of the day to clear stress? And then I'm in the midst of a more advanced training. It's called Taoist Alchemy. It's called the Pearl of Consciousness. And it's a really deep dive into transformation and the Qigong perspective of maybe what we'd call it spirituality, and how to feel and from a really felt sense, a body sense, a deeper connection to the universe, the world around us, our higher selves, and those kinds of practices. There's a lot more meditation. And Pearl of Consciousness sounds very interesting, but pearl is it starts in an oyster as an irritation. And what you were saying before, you turn it into this something that's really beautiful. How do I take whatever's irritating, stressing me out, and turn it into a pearl, into a gem, into a jewel? So alchemy is the art of transforming lead into gold. Now, what does that mean? It means like what's lead is what's heavy, what's weighing heavy in your mind, in your heart. Where's the tension, the problems, the heaviness in your body? How do we transform it into lightness, into that gold? Or as you said, into that feeling of being high, meaning just higher vibrations where we feel light within ourselves and clear in body and mind. So there's a lot of tools and techniques in that practice to go into it. So we have a really nice paved way to go from a beginner's practice through a condition specific and topics that you might really need and resonate with you, into these more, I would say, esoteric kinds of concepts of, what's it all about? Why am I here? What's my purpose? So that's kind of what we put together in a really clear itinerary online.
Yeah, fabulous. I can't wait for people to be able to get their hands on that coursework. My question that comes out of that is this just a way of avoiding the things that are difficult in my life? Mm-hmm. Is meditation just a way of avoiding actually what I need to deal with?
Isn't that a good question? I think, it's a way to dive into it, because we don't necessarily avoid it, but it's like, how do we have clear perspective on this? How do we address it as it is and not add more stress to what's there? How do, in the face of stress, how can we be more relaxed and more centered? How can I get comfortable in uncomfortable circumstances? That's a good question to ask yourself. This circumstance is very uncomfortable for me. How can I relax and get comfortable with it? So some positions in Qigong, they're designed to be uncomfortable. You're standing in maybe a deep knee bend and you're like, this is uncomfortable. And now the instruction is find your center, relax as much as you can. And when you come through it, you feel a lot more energy. So when you come through a challenging circumstance with gracefulness, you come through and you feel empowered. You feel stronger, you feel wiser, you feel more compassionate for those who are going through it with you. So that's what your practice is helping you do. It's not to get away from it, it's to get into it and get into it with all of yourself, with your strength and power, with your tools and resources, and overcome that challenge. And now you have new capabilities and capacities, and you grow into your better self. You grow into your emerging self that you want to become. I think for listeners, if you think about it, there's always something inside of us that we're reaching towards. I want this. I want to feel healthier. I want to feel more energized. I want to feel happier. There's something in us that we want to grow into. And so what tools do you need to grow into that?
Yeah. And that's an excellent distinction. I think a lot of people that think that meditation is avoiding problem solving. And so you can get too far into it, yes, where you're not doing anything practical in the real world, but this is not that. This is not that. And so just to speak from my own experience of having been given the diagnosis of something that is incurable and terminal and chronic. So 14 years ago, I was given this diagnosis with the Huntington's disease. And so I should really be not in very good shape. And I was training really hard at that time in a gym with people who were, my trainers were both retired special ops guys. So really intense training. And I stood in the parking lot outside the gym and went, how am I going to tell them this? Like, what am I going to tell them? And what's going to be their response? And I knew what they were going to say to me with giving them that news was, oh, rub some dirt in it, Mattinson, like, just keep going. Because that's what they would have said. It wouldn't have been, like, this big, outpouring of, of whatever it is, like of empathy and crying and whatever that way. Their empathy or their empathetic response would be, you need to actually transmute this through your body. And so it was the ability to actually have the wisdom of not going and telling everybody what was going on at that time. The select few people that I knew would be a good support, I told them. And then everybody else, I thought, they can't fix this for me anyway. Mm-hmm. I'm the only one that can fix this for me. And so when Qigong came into my life, it was kind of during this, I was transitioning out of the Western training sort of philosophy because I had too many injuries. So I couldn't do 500 burpees anymore. My body just couldn't sustain that, the level of punishment that but the level of punishment was part of what was helping me to transmute that, the uncertainty, right? Because the fear and uncertainty of having that kind of a diagnosis, which also affects my children and grandchildren. So I already had a child at that point. I had a grandchild at that point, so the really going, how am I going to figure this out for myself? And so when Qigong came into the sort of fray, I went, oh, this is very powerful without being punishing. Yeah, so exactly. It's like, I don't have to kick my own, at the gym or have a trainer that's kicking my butt. It's like, it's a very internal self fulfilling program or process, and that it changes all the time. So day to day, for me, it was like I could do some things some days and other days I couldn't. And, that whole, like, some days I needed to do whatever the posture was that was more military. I did lots of knocking on my belly, lots of knocking on my solar plexus, lots of knocking on my lungs. So releasing the chi, but creating that iron shirt also so the iron shirt training was very helpful. You have lots of trainings that have been very, very helpful along the way to managing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what when we think about, fitness, as you were discussing it, we often think about it just in terms of our body. Are we fit in our body? But what we really want in a Qigong perspective is we want to be all of ourselves fit, which means Qi fit, which means the fitness of your mind, your emotions, and your body, because they're not separate, then that's the thing. And when we want to create a healing in our bodies, we need to address the energy of our minds and our emotions. And we really need to listen and say, hey, body, what do you need to do to transform this particular ailment that I'm facing? And really listen in, because your body is a great source of wisdom. And if your mind is just saying, you better do what I say, we get problems. We overly train, we can overly do. And when we listen to our bodies, we have the right movements, exercises. And that's why there's such a variety in Qigong. There's really strong workouts. There's really gentle workouts. There's really fitness oriented practice, and there's very meditative. And it's like, what do I need at this time in my life or at this part of my day? Your morning practice is going to be different than your evening practice. So that's what I love about this. And it addresses all of you rather than just part of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was really able to dial back too at this age, 54. I was able to dial back 7 years earlier, not doing the punishing stuff so I could still play with my grandchildren at this age. Because if I would have still been doing those punishing workouts, I just wouldn't have the physique to be able to do it. Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I need a hip replacement. I need my knees replaced. I need my elbow done something with. I have to go get cortisone shots, like all of that. I don't have any of that. Like I can be very, very flexible and playful with all of my grandkids and get down on the floor with them and do that. That's priceless. You know, so I don't struggle with my physical health, which I know I would have if I would have continued down that path.
Yeah.
So the ending of a practice for Qigong, the ones that you do or that I've watched you do and followed along with, that I have such an appreciation for, really is at the end of all that work, whatever it is you choose to do, it's like being the bamboo in the wind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you go with the flow, right? And I bet, Leaha, as you continue your Qigong practice, you're going to be able to get on the floor with your grandkids. You know, when you're 70, 80, 90, you're just going to be like, hey, look at grandma go. She's carrying the kids on her back. She's, you continue to stay well balanced. And that's the goal of the practice. And, age with grace and beauty and strength and power. And let's remind people they have tremendous healing power in their own bodies, as you've been able to demonstrate with your healing journey. And, when I get to hear from my community of, it's really thousands of people just talking and telling me and writing in, hey, thank you. I had this problem. Now it's gone. I didn't know that I could have this ability within myself. But remember, your body has amazing healing capacity. When you get out of stress and you get balanced, your body is the healer. It's not even the practice that's healing. The practice just helps you to remove the unnecessary and reorient to who you truly are from the inside out. I
love that. Remove the unnecessary.
Yeah. Let go of the unnecessary. We all hold too much tension in our body, and we all hold too much tension in our minds. Those are unnecessary. So we all want to get into the place where we can do less and have more of an effortless ease in our lives. And, Qigong is the art of effortless power. How do we move with power in an effortless way, going with the flow of all of life's energy rather than struggling and swimming upstream?
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. So we're out of time again.
Okay, well, we'll just have to do it again.
It flies by so fast. So for those of you who want to join and check out what Master Lee Holden is doing, go to the website masteryourlife.ca, or you can check out holdenqigong.com. And I also want to encourage you all to invite other people. Like oftentimes we just think about our own health and healing, but I want to really get you to think about who else in your life could really use this gift right now of being calm and centered and focused and just feeling empowered in ways that are natural and playful, because I bet you know somebody. And so just take the time to reach out, show some compassion to your fellow man or woman in that regard. Thanks again, Lee.
Thank you, Leaha. Yeah, I look forward to seeing everybody there. Remember, we have all kinds of free stuff. You can just come try it. We have free 2-week trials to our classes and all kinds of free little, condition specific things. So we'd love to see you guys come try Qigong and empower your own lives. And again, that was like Holden Qigong, and people know how to spell Qigong. That's the hardest part of this practice. Yeah.
Qigong.
There you go. That's it.
I passed.
You passed.
Yay for me.
Wonderful. Awesome. Gold star.
Right. Gold star. Good job, everybody. Awesome. So everyone, we invite you to love yourselves, love each other, mind your minds. That's all for us. Bye for now.
Thank you for being a part of our program today. Master Your Life is a presentation of Leaha Mattinson Enterprises, Inc. Join us next time on Master Your Life, helping you to discover the very best of you.